So you're a plastic company. You team up with oil companies to create a miracle product that can do pretty much anything. It's cheap, durable, easily accessible, and easy to mass produce. What more could you ask for?
I know, I feel like I'm dreaming.
And by the 1980s, you're in your prime. The only problem is plastics can't be destroyed. They just keep piling up and up and up. Now, this is actually not a problem for you. The more plastic that piles up means the more plastic you're selling. But the real problem is the general public. See, the masses crave to feel that they're good people, that they're the righteous ones, the moral ones, fighting against evil. And polluting the planet with plastic trash that takes upwards of half a millennia to decompose makes you an easy target for the plebs. In their eyes, you're the evil scapegoats. So the general public starts protesting the plastics industry. Now, this is bad, because you know the success of anything, political movements, educational movements, businesses, entire industries, including the plastics industry, rely on the approval of the public. If the public turns on you, you're done. So you need to come up with a solution, something that would change the public's perception of plastic, something that will allow them to keep consuming plastic without feeling guilty about themselves for destroying the planet. The only problem is, most plastic is literally not recyclable. It's not just that you can't recycle plastic, it's that the process to do so is so expensive and labor intensive that making new plastic will always be cheaper. So you settle on the next best thing. This is the recycling symbol created in 1970. And this is the resin identification code, a symbol created by the plastics industry in 1988. A symbol that's on almost every piece of plastic you buy today. Now, if you're saying to yourself that symbol looks shockingly similar to the official recycling symbol, you'd be correct, because that was by design. A design to intentionally deceive the general public into believing the plastic you buy is recyclable. Yes, recycling is a literal lie concocted by the plastics industry to sell you more plastic. And this is how it was pulled off. How much plastic could the world
possibly use? Oh, that's not so much. So? I had no idea.
You can even recycle your bicycle, cause all metals and plastics are recyclable. So reduce, reuse, recycle. Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Most of what makes people feel good about recycling is based on misinformation.
The biggest plastic manufacturer today is the Dow Chemical Company. The Dow Chemical Company has over $19 million in debt. That's a lot of debt. We don't know the interest rate on that debt, but what we do know is that drowning in credit card debt and other high interest debt to the point where you can only afford to pay off the interest every month is a surefire way of staying in poverty, while your lender gets rich. And if you're drowning in a lot of high interest debt like the average American, wouldn't it be nice if you could take out a loan at a much lower interest rate, use that loan to pay off your high interest debt, so you're left with only one single loan that requires only one fixed monthly payment with a clear payoff date, so you can escape this vicious cycle once and for all? Well, you're in luck because that's where Upstart comes in, today's video sponsor. Upstart is a fast, easy way to get a personal loan online to help you pay off your high interest debt. Whether you need to pay off credit cards, consolidate a bunch of high interest debt, or you just need help funding personal expenses like medical bills, Upstart can help you by giving you a loan that requires only one fixed monthly payment with a clear payoff date. And the great thing is, instead of just looking at your credit score, Upstart takes in other factors like your income, current employment, and credit history to help you get a smarter rate for your loan. Upstart offers loans of $1,000 to $50,000, and you can check your rate in minutes without impacting your credit score. Once you're approved, you can receive your funds in as little as one business day. Find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/JakeTran. That's upstart.com/JakeTran. Use my link in the description below to let them know I sent you. Upstart.com/JakeTran.
Plastic, plastic, plastic. What are plastics? Are they vegetable or mineral?
Plastic production started in the early 1900s. It was marketed as a material of 1,000 uses. And it was making money and gaining popularity slowly, but it was nowhere near its real earning potential. Then World War II hit. And since economic power was just as important as military power, wars aren't free after all, the government started prioritizing the production of this new material that wasn't just very useful, but also very profitable. You see, the military had to get money from somewhere to keep fighting the war, and plastic was an industry with a lot of potential just waiting to be exploited. So during World War II alone, plastic production in the US increased by 300%. Plastic took the place of steel in cars and warplanes, it replaced paper and glass packaging, and even wood furniture.
Plastics will play as large a role in peace as they do in war. Here is a plane containing hundreds of plastic parts. Here another bonded by plastics. This paratrooper floating down to welcome Mother Earth is depending on plastics to get him there safely.
And since plastic is made from oil and natural gas products, plastic companies suddenly emerged from the oil giants like Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, and DuPont. And with the backing of the fossil fuel industry, there was nowhere to go but up. It's kinda hard to illustrate just how much of a game changer plastic was for companies. Imagine spending all these man hours machining these expensive materials like metal, wood, and glass for years and years and years. And then comes along this wonder material that was not only orders of magnitude cheaper, but could be molded into any shape and was durable. Everyone was using it for pretty much everything, from chairs to cheap jewelry to car parts. But because it was so durable and useful, these plebs started hanging onto their plastic products. They weren't throwing them away after one single use. This was a problem for you. If people reuse your plastic indefinitely, you can't make them a repeat buyer, which is where all the real money is at. So the plastic industry launched a massive campaign, millions of dollars worth of ads, encouraging people not to be such unsophisticated peasants. Reusing dirty plastic? Ew. Just throw it away after one use, what's the harm? It's so cheap to replace. And it started to work. But then came the hippies. You see, not everyone saw the beauty in plastic as you did. And when they started noticing your ads telling everyone to just chuck out their plastic and buy new ones, the plastic industry became the prime target for destroying the environment, which led to America's first ever Earth Day holiday in 1970 to protest the use of plastic and other pollutants. 1 in 10 Americans took part. Now obviously, this number of people going up against your industry is not good. If everyone found out the extent of just how bad plastics were for the environment, how they can't be destroyed and how it kills animals, you would be out of business. So you concocted a genius plan. Instead of fighting the hippies, you would join them playing both sides.
I'm playing both sides so that I always come out on top.
So you, the other plastic companies, and the fossil fuel companies create a front organization called Keep America Beautiful. A very wholesome, inconspicuous name. And to kick things off, you create the Crying Indian ad.
People start pollution. People can stop it.
It's literally called the Crying Indian, I did not make that up. Hilariously, the Crying Indian was actually an Italian actor named Iron Eyes Cody, and apparently impersonating Native Americans was a specialty. This ad played on TVs all over America, and for a hot minute it seemed like Earth Day protests were really making a difference. Here were the actual plastic companies telling people to stop littering and to be more conscious of the environment so the Indian doesn't cry. Sure, you could have spent the money finding ways to make plastic more reusable, but why do that when you can just placate the masses by making it look like you're trying to change? And it worked. People started throwing their trash away, and it even helped start the very first few recycling plants. And those few recycling plants gave way to the best idea yet.
And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
By 1970, plastic products that were recyclable, like milk jugs and soda bottles, had the official recycling symbol stamped on them. That is good news. Plebs don't have to feel guilty anymore about buying plastic milk and soda bottles. The bad news is that milk and soda bottles make up just a tiny percentage of all the plastic out there, with most of it not being recyclable. But there is still hope. The public mind has now associated this symbol with being good for the planet, so all you have to do is latch onto that association. So you come up with your own version of the recycling symbol. You make the arrows a little bit thinner, you slap a number in the center of it, and then you lobby to slap this symbol onto every plastic product in existence. Here's the official recycling symbol, and here is the resin identification marker, or resin identification code, concocted by the plastic industry. There are 7 different resin identification codes, yet realistically only 2 out of the 7 types of plastics can be recycled. But it worked. Consumers didn't know what these big numbers meant. All they saw was what looked like a recycling symbol. So they just assumed that all plastic products with this symbol were recyclable. Buying plastic no longer meant that they were destroying the planet, so they kept on consuming. When in reality you knew the truth. That plastic recycling would never work, that it would always be too expensive, that plastic degrades every time it was recycled, so it could only really be reused 2 or 3 times. But that didn't matter anymore, because the public's guilt was satisfied.
If the public thinks the recycling is working, then they're not going to be as concerned about the environment.
And And although these codes should have made the life of recyclers easier in theory, because they can now easily separate what is recyclable from what isn't, it had the opposite effect. It made recycling almost impossible now, because people were throwing way more junk into the recycle bin.
In the US, we're recycling less than 50% of our bottles and cans. Join PepsiCo in the recycling of every last bottle and can.
And the advertising campaigns didn't end there. Hundreds of ads, hundreds of campaigns, all encouraging people to recycle their plastic so they could protect the planet. One plastic lobbyist famously said, "What we need to do is advertise our way out of this." The bottle may look empty, yet it's anything but trash, says one ad from 1990, showing a plastic bottle bouncing out of a garbage truck. It's full of potential. We've pioneered the country's largest, most comprehensive plastic recycling program to help plastic fill valuable uses and roles.
Do the right thing, it's an obligation, and your planet will thank you for your cooperation.
I'm reusing this plastic jug and making it into a funnel and a tool holder. Jars for nuts, bolts, screws, nails. Reuse it for the future. It's worth it.
These ads were made to look like they came from environmentalists, when in reality, it really came from the fossil fuel companies behind all this plastic in the first place.
Why?
Whenever the public became outraged, you would fund more recycling initiatives, and when the public died down, that funding was pulled. With all this advertising came the introduction of single-use plastics, like straws, shopping bags, bottled water. A material designed to last forever was being thrown away after one use. But don't worry, because you can recycle them, building up the industry's revenue to an insane $1.2 trillion a year. Cigarette companies and the Diamond Cartel are often credited as some of the greatest marketers of all time because of the feats they pulled off, but their practices eventually became somewhat well known to the public. But the plastic industry? Today, hardly anyone even knows about the ruse that was pulled off.
Some recycling makes sense. Reusing aluminum saves lots of energy. But just about everything else is a scam.
We all know the good that recycling does for Darwin and its environment, but a few simple mistakes can mean the difference between recycling right and wasting our recycling efforts. Putting plastic bags in the yellow bins, for example, can send tons of good recycling to landfill. So don't let our efforts go to waste. Learn to recycle for good.
Today, although more and more of the types of plastic can be recycled, it either costs way more money compared to just making more plastic, or the act of recycling itself is even worse for the environment. Paper recycling involves bleaching and de-inking, things that can pollute the environment even more. Transporting materials to recycling plants out of states can cause even more pollution than the recycling would make up for.
All recycling isn't necessarily good and isn't necessarily environmentally benign. Well, I live in Bozeman, Montana, and in order to recycle glass bottles, we ship them down to Golden, Colorado.
And in places like LA, using 400 more garbage trucks to collect recyclable waste, most of it won't be recycled in the first place, just adds to air pollution and more taxes.
After Los Angeles mandated recycling, they discovered they needed another 400 garbage trucks to pick up the new container.
Today, less than 10% of all plastic is recycled, but the impressive part is that no one is the wiser. So where does the rest of that 90% go?
When you look at plastic, you know how it helps things stay fresh and safe and light and unbreakable and strong and easy to carry. But take another look. Plastic also saves energy because it helps make cars lighter to save gas. And plastic insulation helps save energy at home. Even these strong plastic bags help save energy because they take less energy to make than other grocery bags. To learn more, call this number for a free booklet. And take another look at plastic.
Most of the 300 million tons of plastic waste produced each year that isn't recycled ends up in landfills. But not all of it ends up there. Around 10 million tons ends up in the ocean each year as well. That's the equivalent of one garbage truck full of plastic being dumped into the ocean every single minute, according to some estimates. This could be accidental due to heavy rain and wind moving trash into the ocean, or it could be from illegal dumping, with most of it coming from Asian countries we sell our trash to. And since plastic isn't biodegradable, most of it slowly breaks into smaller and smaller pieces over time. These tiny pieces of plastic are called microplastics, and they either form a sludge layer in the middle of the ocean or end up being eaten by fish. And no matter if you're a raging environmentalist SJW or a hardcore conservative, this creates a problem for you. Not only does it kill marine life like dolphins and whales, we all know about that, but that same plastic ends up seeping its way into practically everything we eat. It's in the delicious sushi I'm addicted to, other forms of seafood, it's in the salt taken from the ocean water, it's in things that don't even come from the ocean like fruits and vegetables, with apples having the highest concentration of microplastics, and broccoli and carrots trailing behind. And sometimes it's even found in the air we breathe. Decades of plastic use have contaminated our air, water, and soil. Eating just a bite of an apple can now mean eating hundreds of thousands of bits of plastic at the same time. And just like when cigarettes first came out, there wasn't decades of smoking history to base studies off of, so doctors just assumed it wasn't bad for you, giving smoking their stamp of approval. Today, we still don't have a clear picture on what the long-term effects of consuming plastic are. Yes, we love plastic so much that we become one with the same material concocted by plastic and oil giants. Now, if you watch this channel, you know that I am not the biggest fan of taxes or a giant all-consuming government. That's why I'm not going to use this opportunity to push you guys to support more government programs funded by taxes, more regulations, like every environmentalist. Instead, I'm gonna push you guys to donate to Team Seas, a campaign where all the biggest creators are coming together to raise $30 million to get 30 million pounds of trash out of the ocean. It's led by Mr. Beast, an incredibly kind and smart guy, and Mark Rober. Last year, their goal was $20 million to plant 20 million trees, a feat they thought was impossible at first, but that they ended up shattering with $23 million in donations, and 2,600 trees being planted every day to this day. And this year, they're stepping it up a notch. Instead of $20 million, it's $30 million. And instead of $1 for planting a tree, it's $1 for every pound of trash removed from the ocean. To put this into context, 30 million pounds of trash is the equivalent of 85 football fields at 1 foot thick of trash. Or like we mentioned earlier, it's the equivalent of removing somewhere around 3 years worth of plastic from the ocean. And to do this, Team Trees has partnered with the Ocean Conservancy and the Ocean Cleanup, who are professionals at this, to remove 30 million pounds of trash every day over the next 3 years. But it's only gonna be possible with your help. Whoever said money can't buy happiness hasn't given enough away. And like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter where you land on the political spectrum. I think we can all agree that less trash in the ocean, done on a voluntary manner, not through coercion, is probably a good thing. Even if you don't care about the environment, like I've never been a hardcore environmentalist, you should still donate for your own selfish benefits. Not only does it make you happier by giving away money, but donating just $5 equals 5 pounds less of trash that could end up in the air you breathe and the food you eat. Not just for you, but for your family and loved ones. That's why I would be donating $1,000 of my own money to get a literal ton of trash out of the ocean. But for you, it can be as little as $5, whatever you can afford. And you can join me by clicking the donate button below or by going to teamseas.org with the link below. Click the donate button or head to teamseas.org to show the world just what our community can do. Guys, the link to donate to Team Seas will be linked below right next to that subscribe button. And speaking of subscribing, we make video essays, documentaries just like this one every single week on the most provocative stuff in the world of money, power, war, and crime. And it's free too. All you have to do is click subscribe. If you want more day in the life kind of stuff, you can follow me on Instagram at jaketrend.io. But that's gonna wrap it up. Thank you for being part of the Watch to the End Club. Keep sharpening that mind, stay dangerous out there, and I will see you guys in the next one.